Local Edge, powered by AdCanada Media.
Hi everybody, welcome to Season 2 of Local Edge. It's your show for better understanding and connecting with small communities in Canada. Here, we explore the value of these markets to advertisers, agencies, communities, and more. We bring you the latest news, insights, and trends from the world of local advertising and marketing. I'm your host, Shauna Randolph. The theme for this episode, the adaptation of local media in the digital age. We're going to be looking into the use and readership of digital e-editions in the Canadian newspaper landscape and what the impact is for advertisers. So whether you are an advertiser, an agency, community member, or just someone interested in the world of local advertising, just sit back, relax, and enjoy our show.
Out east, Quebecers spend an average of $85 annually on laundry and dry cleaning services, almost twice as much as residents in Manitoba. For more data like this and a better understanding of connecting with local markets, please visit adcanadamedia.ca.
We had such a great discussion in episode 1 about the recent Totem research study into how news consumption is transitioning to online that we want to expand the conversation. Essentially, what does it all mean to advertisers? Joining us is the CEO of AdCanada Media, Jeff Beardsworth, and Greg Foster, Client Services Manager with AdCanada Media. Also, Joe Herkin, CEO of Issue, a provider of e-edition technology, and Brandy Fredrickson, owner, publisher of the Drayton Valley Free Press. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
All right, let's set the stage here with this conversation. Jeff, starting with you and the study, can you briefly give us an overview of it, its primary objectives, that sort of thing? Let's start with you.
I can, Sean. This study is part of an ongoing series of studies that have been conducted by Totem Research, and this goes back probably 10 years now. And the objective of the studies have always been to kind of dig into urban markets in Canada versus rural markets in Canada and see how the media consumption habits might differ between someone who lives in a major metropolitan area like Toronto versus someone who lives on a farm in northwestern Saskatchewan. So the study's been ongoing for years. At the end of the day, with the evolution of media and how things are changing, it just seemed like the right time to introduce a new platform into the mix, and that is these e-editions. And I think I should probably clarify that when we talk about e-editions, Shauna, we're talking specifically about the digital replication of the printed newspaper. So the exact same product that you would see in print, with the difference being instead of being delivered on newsprint, it's being delivered by way of a screen using one of the different software platforms that have been developed specifically to deliver an e-edition. So you get the same look and feel that you would get when you're reading a newspaper. You get exactly the same content package. So you get the stories, you get the ads, you get the crossword puzzles, the classified ads, you get the whole package just delivered electronically. And I think going back the last 4 or 5 years, engagement with e-editions is something that we didn't really understand. So we wanted Totem to kind of dig into this a little bit and see what they could find out about engagement with e-editions.
Okay, let's talk about the findings now, especially regarding Canadian engagement with newspapers. What surprised you the most with this?
I don't think I would, it comes as a surprise to know that those e-edition engagement numbers are big. What this study showed us, Shauna, was that 41% of Canadians actually reported that they'd read an e-edition within the last week. So that kind of confirms or validates something that we've always believed about people's transition to reading news online. I think maybe what is a bit of a surprise is the fact that when you add those e-edition engagement numbers to the printed product, so people who are still reading the printed newspaper, and you factor in things like duplication, we're now talking about 60%. 60% of Canadians are actually reading not the print, but they're reading the traditional format of the newspaper. And I think that's maybe something that we need to spend a little bit more time focusing on, because at the end of the day, much has been made about this transition to online news consumption, certainly as it relates to newspapers. But what we maybe haven't been spending enough time focusing on is what are people reading online? When you think about newspapers, they make their content available online in several different ways, right? There's the e-edition that we've talked about. There's publishers who send out newsletters. That is their newspaper. And then, of course, there's the standard posted content that I think everyone kind of understands and relates to and uses as kind of a catch-all for read online. When in reality, reading posted content on a website is only one component of how people read news online. And what this study did for us is confirm that this maybe isn't so much a print versus online issue. It's maybe more of a traditional format versus posted content format, if that makes sense. So again, not really surprised, but more of a validation of what we already knew. And when you think about it, and just add a little bit more context, when you think about that 60% of people who are reading a traditional format newspaper, that stacks up against 50% of Canadians who are saying that they actually read posted content on a newspaper's website. So at the end of the day, more Canadians are actually still engaging with the traditional format of the newspaper than they are actually the new one. So that maybe is a bit of a surprise.
Okay, so before we bring in everybody else here, just really quickly, Jeff, how does engagement with e-editions vary between urban and rural populations?
Maybe a little bit of a surprise there too, because again, when we think about this transition to online news consumption, we really tend to think about bigger urban markets, right? We think we've lost those guys. They've canceled their subscription to the newspaper. They're now just going to a website and reading posted content. In reality, what this study has shown us is that there's a greater percentage of Canadians who are actually engaging with the e-edition than there are rural ones. So that's a bit of a surprise. And the number was like 6%. 6% more Canadians in urban areas are engaging with e-editions than in rural areas. When you think about it a little bit more, it kind of does make sense too, because rural markets tend to have continued to engage with the traditional newspaper, the printed format of the newspaper. So a little bit of a difference when it comes to urban versus rural. But if you look at the entire package, Shauna, the numbers are identical. 60% of Canadians, whether you're urban or rural, are engaging with either the printed version of the newspaper or its e-edition counterpart.
Okay, I'm going to start bringing in others here. Joe, with you first. I'm curious about your perspective to that statistic that Jeff was talking about, the 41%, so say 4 in 10 Canadians reading a newspaper on an e-edition platform in the week. Seems like a high number, but what are your thoughts?
The truth is almost 100% of Canadians have an e-edition in their pocket all day long, every day. They've got phones. And what's interesting about e-editions is now people can access the newspaper, that content, at their convenience, wherever they are at any point in the day, rather than, typically a printed version is interacted with, in the morning or when you're sitting down at home or you've just gotten the delivery. So one of the things that we find is that now the digital version provides much broader access than was available previously. The second thing, and I just totally agree with everything Jeff said in the beginning when he was talking about what is accessible in these e-editions, it's the full package that you get in the print version. We like to say at Issue, we enable you to create once and share everywhere. So print editions are limited by geography and specific distribution, kiosks, or sent to someone's house, or that sort of thing. The digital edition now becomes widely accessible anywhere, and you can enhance those pages or with video content, with links, with links specifically for advertisers. So there's a huge new revenue opportunity that becomes available where you can click on ads. You can see video of an advertiser instead of just a flat standard print ad. So in fact, you can also add additional images or additional links for more details on a story. Newsprint is limited by the specific number of pages and the real estate on those pages. The digital edition allows even more detail and more depth.
Yeah, I can't wait to dive more into that in this conversation, the benefit for advertisers. Thank you for that, Joe. Brandy, I want to talk to you now. You're someone who uses e-editions as a way of engaging audiences in Drayton Valley, Alberta. Again, back to that like 4 in 10 statistic, those findings, how did they line up with your experience?
So basically, those lined up quite well. Out of all of we always tell our advertisers about 2/3 of our subscribers are digital subscribers. So that goes around with that 66% versus 33%. What going with the digital helped us do early on is it helped us scale faster and quicker as a startup. So we were a startup about 5 years ago. Being able to have access to emails and get out to different distribution channels, I guess is what it would be. It allowed us to scale faster and bring those circulation numbers up faster. So give us a sense, what sort of response have you had from your readers? Yeah, so one of the statistics that we kind of put out annually is on what we distribute. So our email distributions for 2023, we had distributed 177,000 emails. And we had distributed 56,000 print editions. The print editions, our pickup rates are extremely high, but also our open rates on our email editions are also extremely high. They're sitting around 90% most cases, sometimes higher, sometimes lower, depending on Christmas break, summer break. But the thing that's really great about that is that what we found, and I know you haven't gotten to advertisers yet, but it gives us another layer of data as well to share with advertisers in terms of being able to give them a sense of what demographic is reading the paper, what are the open rates, the click-throughs on the ads. We're using those URL links and stuff on our ads. So we were looking when we had started to put us on par with some of the stats and the data that they're used to getting, that people are used to getting from your digital advertisers such as Google or Facebook or what have you. So it allowed us to be relevant in that sense.
You get even more specificity too with that data, right? So it's different than picking up a printed newspaper. You now get the specifics with the open rates and clicks and all of that kind of information that also enables you to have a better relationship with your advertisers and audience.
Okay, advertiser talk now. Got to bring in Greg as client services manager. Your focus is to help advertisers basically understand the unique challenges of advertising into individual community markets and the rewards for getting it right. So your view, what makes the print and e-edition combination so compelling for advertisers as we switch gears to focus more on that now?
Well, there's a lot of potential, Shauna. To focus on one that's kind of been touched on a little bit, but I really want to focus in on it. Printed local newspapers have always brought a lot of benefits to advertisers. One special benefit is that ads in community papers and printed newspapers are welcomed as part of the total advertising information package. Let's be honest, most ads today are served up in an environment that to one degree or another are an unwelcome interruption to somebody's viewing or their listening or their scrolling. And that affects the way the ad is received. By contrast, research consistently reports that newspaper ads are accepted and welcomed by readers as part of the whole information package. A big part of that is the presentation. When an ad appears in a paper, it appears on a page or a spread of pages that have been designed, mindfully prepared to go together so that the reader gets their local content in the local context presented as the publisher intended, if you want custom built for residents in that community. And that adds a tremendous benefit to ad receptivity. So as has been touched on, the e-edition is, sure, it's read digitally, but the page composition is still intact. The context is still there, and it's being, again, received as the publisher intended. Very compelling opportunity for advertisers.
So, Joe, aside from video, you talked about that can be incorporated into it, and that. Let's talk about the metrics. Advertisers are so focused on the metrics and the return for investment for what they're putting out there. So let's talk about that, the ability for a reader to click through to a website, more about that, and then analyzing the actual item that they have out there.
Yeah, with digital editions, again, you can create click through directly to the advertiser. Let's say it's a restaurant, a local restaurant. That restaurant can get, you can see how many clicks through to the actual restaurant itself. You could put additional kinds of content into that ad, a video of patrons in the restaurant, the actual menu itself. So there's a level of creativity. Greg mentioned newspaper is in large part the presentation as well. It's where things are laid out on a page. And the digital edition enables you to use that layout completely without changing anything, but you can enhance it. And then as the publisher, you can provide detailed, specific data to that advertiser. You can say how many people clicked on it as opposed to, averaging it out or, doing generalizations. You can show how many people clicked on different parts of that ad. You can see how that ad compares 1 month or 1 week in comparison to another week or month. Different placements in the newspaper. You can really see exactly how it's performing. You can see what enhancements are valuable. And then you can also get additional data in terms of how that ad is being perceived with the rest of the content on that page. And then you can start to charge for it. You can charge differently when you have that kind of specific information than when it's a more general ad.
So then, Joe, how do you think ads appearing in e-edition stack up against other online advertising that you might see on, say, Facebook or X or something like that then?
I think it's better because ads on Facebook or X or various other things are just ads that are supposed to be associated either with the content or with what the reader has been searching for. In this instance, what you're able to do is put the ad directly in the newspaper where the advertiser wants it. One of the things that's great about newspaper advertising is advertisers get to pick where it goes. Front page, inside front cover. I want a third of an ad in this particular space. So you still get all of that. And so you get way more value as an advertiser because you're involved as opposed to hoping the algorithms work.
So Brandy, what benefits are your advertisers seeing from the e-editions as far as, say, measurement analytics?
I love the number crunching. There's lots of, you can see different industries at different times of the year that seem to have more popularity, more click-through rates. The one thing that I have to say that's also a benefit for advertisers with regards to our digital issue is that we also we distribute the digital issue on the same day as our print one. So that's Thursday. But then come Monday, the following week, we do a redistribution email to those people who may have not opened the newspaper over the course of the weekend. So our distribution channel in that case is, I would say, there's more touch points. It's a little bit stronger, that sense. That being said, obviously our print is picked up a lot. What we find is sometimes people will look at the paper they see interesting pieces, and then they're looking for a print issue later in that week. But in terms of us, so it's like that. The ad clicks is one aspect. The other thing as a newspaper publisher is that we also try to stress that the established distribution channels that we have. And this is one in which we have a lot of control over how the email is distributed. If people haven't gotten it, they can contact us. We can check the back end and say, okay, we'll make sure that you get the, it allows us also to offer a high end of customer service to our subscribers as well. So there's that whole bit. So there's the bit for the advertisers, but the advertisers also, I guess, have confidence in that we're also distributing well. We're making sure that there's open rates remain high, and we're also making sure that we keep client care top of hand in terms of our subscribers as well as our advertisers as well. So it's both sides of the scale there, I guess.
Randy, I bet one of the other benefits you get is people who have moved away can still get access to the local content.
Yes.
Or tourists coming in, like you have a much broader ability to distribute in ways that people would like to have the content but couldn't get their hands on a print version.
That's correct.
Brandy, looking forward, how do you see e-editions evolving within your publication?
You know what? I find it's quite interesting. And I've said this in other podcasts with you guys, that we're straddling a bunch of different demographics right now. We have our seniors that love that print. They love that the texture, the feel. Sometimes we've had people who have gotten a digital issue that then request to have print because it's just easier for their eyesight to be able to read. We then also go run the gamut between people who hover between both, and then we get people who love the digital. So I think where we're at in terms of what we're seeing in terms of longevity, where people are living longer than ever. We also have, young families as well. I think that e-edition, in addition to the print, allows us to, again, going back to that broad demographic of reader, I think it allows us to provide the highest standard of subscriber client care and what would it be, customer service, I guess, in that sense is what I'm trying to convey.
Wow. Okay, Greg, what do you ultimately think the rise of e-editions for the newspaper industry means to advertisers that you work for?
Well, Shauna, before this discovery and the research came to light, and before we kind of began investigating what this all could mean, I worked with advertisers who often admit they felt at a bit of a crossroads. They would admit they see value in printed newspapers. I was never really ever in doubt, but for reasons, usually because the company's strategy or the client's strategy had some digital component, some digital initiative to flow responses into digital marketing nets or some such. Or as Joe alluded to, there was a video component. There was some reason for them now to need to start looking at digital options. And they felt that this was as important as the benefits of the printed newspaper. It turns out that as publishers adopt e-editions more universally, an advertiser can actually have both choices, and for the budget of just one. Buying the local newspaper gets you those same tangible advantages you get for appearing in the local, physically in the local community where people are having their discussions about things that are locally relevant. And you can take advantage of the things that being in a digital program might mean to the rest of your strategy. So it's a game changer for ad planners looking for every advantage. I suspect that as the spotlight gets turned brighter on this approach, and that that planners that perhaps had kind of made up their mind and closed the door on traditional media like newspapers, they might find a reason to come back and look at it again, specifically the print e-edition combination, and there'd be some advantages to looking at it again.
I see Brandy with your hand up. You wanted to say one thing, and then we'll go to Jeff to wrap it up. Go ahead, Brandy.
Hey, sorry. Just one thing I wanted to mention too that Greg had mentioned there. So what the e-edition and the print combo allowed for us to do is it allowed for us to bring digital components to the advertisement for the advertisers. Whereas the way that people thought about it before in terms of strictly website or strictly social media, the issue that we have, we're a rural community. We have a population of 7,000. We service a community of 14 to 20,000. We are not going to get the same kind of traffic on our website that, say, a metropolitan center would get. So because we're not getting that eyeballs, those traffics where we can say that we're getting 60,000 or 60,000 or more views a month, the digital ad component for us in terms of sales, it doesn't hold the same value than that print ad holds for a rural community. It's just, we just don't have the traffic. It's just that we're in a rural community and our stuff is very localized and it's for specific eyeballs. So this allowed us to bring in a component that's digital, that keeps with the times and also takes advantage of the distribution channel that we've created.
Okay, with all this, Jeff, come back into the discussion, wrap it up for us, your final thoughts.
You know, the irony in all of this, Shauna, is e-editions now recognizing not using the same kind of technology that we've just talked about. E-editions, think going back 10, 15 years, kind of represented how newspapers first transitioned onto the internet, right? You'll remember the days where newspapers would post a PDF of their newspaper online and you'd scroll through it. And that's where it started. Then the Googles and the Facebooks kind of came on the scene and totally changed the ball game. And of course, we all kind of went in that direction. We thought that's the future. That's what this is going to look like. We've all got to be oriented around posted content, and we've got to be selling leaderboard ads, and we've got to be selling big box ads. That's what the future looks like. What's interesting here is the past may represent the future, because I've heard Brandy, I've heard Greg, I've heard Joe talk about how e-editions can deliver much and more of the same kind of functionality that you would get with your typical or traditional online ad. I think what we need to do now is kind of enact the paradigm shift. I think we are setting ourselves up for our data to be misinterpreted if we continue to revert to newspapers as having a print component and an online component. I think the better description is there's a traditional format and there's a posted content format. Because if nothing else, what these numbers say is that there is a majority of Canadians who've said by way of this study, they prefer the newspaper experience. That's what they want. Whether they're reading it in print or reading it on screen doesn't really matter. It's immaterial. What matters is, what is the format that you prefer? Do you prefer the page flipping experience? Do you like seeing the ads on the same page as the stories? Because if that's the case, that to me is what the future looks like. And I think there's a lot of ways that we can monetize that as the industry. I think there's a lot of things that can be done to take advantage of it. But it starts with this paradigm shift in properly describing for an advertiser, what are we selling you? Well, we're selling you a traditional format ad that's going to give you the print component and it's going to give you the online component. And the online component, by the way, is going to come with all of the same functionality that you get with, a traditional online ad. So I think there's a lot there.
All right, let's end it there. Very well said to wrap it up. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate you being here for us. From AdCanada Media, that is CEO Jeff Beardsworth and Client Services Manager Greg Foster, and also Joe Hirkin, CEO of Issue, and Brandy Fredrickson, owner-publisher of the Drayton Valley Free Press.
While rural areas comprise the vast majority of Canada's geographical area, more than 4 in every 5 Canadians live in urban centres. For more data like this and a better understanding of connecting with local markets, please visit adcanadamedia.ca.
And that's a wrap of episode 2. Thank you, everyone, so much for spending time with us here on The Local Edge. Again, I'm your host, Shauna Randolph. To stay in tune with us and to access all of our episodes, just be sure to subscribe to the Local Edge podcast. It's on any of the major platforms like Spotify, Apple, Google, whatever you use. Also, don't forget to check out our website, adcanadamedia.ca. Thank you everyone for joining us here on Local Edge, and we will see you next time.
This series is proudly produced by the team at Road 55. Road 55 creates content that connects. For more information, check our website, www.road55.ca.